Hey traders, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful tools for traders, especially if you're trading futures, which is the volume profile. So if you've been struggling finding support and resistance levels, like solid levels where price actually reacts, then this video is gonna help you a lot. And if you would actually like to see this live in action, come trade with me live here on YouTube for free every single day. And click the link in the description to join my free Discord community where I share my levels and I share all kinds of trade ideas, trade setups, and give tons of value for free. All right, let's dive into volume profile. So first, what is volume profile? It's a charting tool that shows you how much volume is traded at each specific price level, not just over time. So most people trade with a time-based volume bar, which is at the bottom of the chart. But volume profile rotates the perspective, and instead of showing when volume occurred, it shows where volume occurred. So this is key for traders because it actually helps identify major levels of interest, which in turn end up being support and resistance levels. And that's places where institutions and large players are likely to get involved. So now I want to show you how to actually add this to your chart. So volume profile, the one on the right, is that I have shown up right here is visible range volume profile, and that's going to change based on what price action you have on the screen. So you can see as I zoom in, zoom out, this volume profile on the right over here is going to change. That's called visible range volume profile. I do have other videos that explain this more heavily, and this is a very valuable tool. Today we're going to focus on the session volume profile, which is, as it sounds, just during the session. So it shows you the volume trading just from 9:30 a.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern. So you have the opportunity to add an indicator, SVP, and this will tell you where price was traded usually during the session. I'm also going to show you how to add it with TradingView. So you can come over here to the fixed range volume profile, turn that on, and you'll click on the opening candle for the session, so 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, and you'll come over to the end of the session at 1500 Central or 1600 Eastern, and you'll click there, and that will calculate it for you. You definitely want to do this on the 1 minute chart because it calculates it more accurately. You'll notice that this point of control, for example, right now is at 23,256, and I'll get into what point of control means here in a second. But if you move to the 15-minute chart, that number changes. Now it's 259. So it calculates a little bit differently on different time frames. So I would recommend setting your indicator first on the 1 minute chart. So there's a couple terms that we want to go over. Point of control, this is the price level with the highest traded volume in that session. Think of this like the fair value for the day. So that is going to be the middle line, which is right here. There's the top line, the middle line, and the bottom line, and I'll explain what they all mean. But the middle line is going to be the point of control. And then there's the value area. So this is typically 70% of the volume. That's what most traders use, is 70% of the volume falls within the value area. And you have the value area high, which is the top line, and the value area low, which is the bottom line. And then you have some high volume nodes and low volume nodes. So high volume nodes would be where price, this node sticks out a little bit more. Low volume node, it is indented a little bit more. So less trading was done in the low volume section, more trading was done in the high volume section. So just kind of give a simple example of what point of control and value area, low and high, means. Think of a simple example, apples. If you're selling apples and everyone agrees that a fair price is $3 for an apple, and if you're selling apples for $3, you have a lot of buyers at $3. That would be the point of control. That's the fair price that's established for apples. Value area low might be $2 or $1, where you might have a lot of buyers, but people aren't willing to sell at that price. So not as much volume, not as much transactions happen there. And same thing at value area high. Maybe that's $5 for an apple. You have a lot of people that are willing to sell their apples at that price, but you don't have as many buyers. So point of control is the fair value where everyone agrees on price, and most of the trading happens in that at that level. Now, when trading futures, price can be pretty volatile, but it also respects volume profile levels really well. So here's how to use it. At the opening print, I mark the overnight volume profile levels from the previous session, and I keep an eye on how price reacts to that point of control from yesterday. So you can see I have all of the previous sessions marked here with the session volume profile, and I'm going to keep an eye on how price reacts at these levels. Real quick, to go into settings on this, if you double click, you can extend the line for the point of control, and you can choose whether or not you want to extend the line for value area high and value area low. If you just want the point of control line to be there, you can do that. I would recommend changing the color for the value area. You can change it to whatever color you want, but you probably want it to be a different color than the other 30%. So keep your 70% levels a different color so it's easier to spot with your eyes. And then the width of the box, if you make this a bigger number, it's going to make the price, the graph come out a little bit further. So I usually keep it at maybe a 30 or a 20 so that it's a little bit more out of the way. And then you can adjust the rest of it how you want to. I do make the row size 1,000 just so you get a little bit more detail here on the graph. You can see where if you make it a lower number, there's not as much intricacy and detail to it. So those are the settings that I put on there. All right, so how to use this. On trending days, price often leaves the value area from the previous day's session and it doesn't return. So that's your cue to trade in the direction of the breakout. On days where it may be more of a ranging day, you might get a rejection of the value area low or value area high from the previous day. And that's going to be more of a balanced day where price tends to respect those value area extremes. And you can look for reversal setups from the point of control, value area high or value area low from the previous session with a tight risk. And then there's volume gaps where price is going to move quickly through those low volume nodes. Or if there's a high volume node, then that could act as support or resistance. So I'll get into some specific examples here, looking at previous session volume profiles. All right, so this is the current day. We don't have tomorrow's price action on this example. So what I'm going to do is look at yesterday's session volume profile and see how the current day reacts to it. So let's delete this and just kind of see how price reacts to the previous one. So this right here is the point of control from the previous session. And you can see that price came up to that and it was a strong area of resistance. So that would have been a spot where you could potentially take a short off of that level as it comes up to point of control and then rejects from there. Because the session opened down, so you were looking for shorts, this was a great spot to retest and continue lower. All right, let's look at another example here. This session was the point of control right here. And like I said, if there's a breakout day, if it ends up going above the previous value area and it stays outside of the previous value area, then you could be looking for a trend continuation. And that's pretty much exactly what happened on this day. So let me move this out of the way so you can see it a little bit better. Here was the previous day's point of control, and price broke out of that point of control and it just kept going up and never came back down to point of control. So that was a trending day. There's a good example there. All right, let's look at a couple more. This was the previous session's value area. Here's the value area low, point of control, value area high. And this was not a great day for reactions off of these levels. So that's why you always got to be patient and see how price reacts because it didn't really help on that day. All right, let's look at another example. So I'll delete this one so you can see that current day's price action. And point of control and value area high are in pretty much the same spot, but let's put a little line here at point of control. And you can see that was pretty much resistance for the whole day. Price was never able to break up above the previous day's point of control. All right, let's look at one more example here. I'll delete this one so you can see price action. Here was the previous session's session volume profile, and here is the point of control so you can see it a little bit better. And that was a perfect spot for a retest. So price came down, it almost hit it and bounced back up. So there was a potential long. Price came down again, tested it perfectly and bounced back up. So there was another potential long. So that's how you can use it in real life, marking off your point of control, value area high, and value area low. Now, these session volume profiles develop as price moves throughout the day. So an hour after the session starts, you can add this to your chart and start taking trades off of this level. So this day, for example, let me add it back to the chart. I'll put it on here at 8:30 a.m. Central to 1500 Central. So convert that to your time zone. But you can see here, I'm going to extend the value area high and value area low so you can see how much of a range this turned out to be, and you could have taken trades off of this range. So this is the value area high, this is the value area low, and you can see that that served as a really good range where you could take longs and shorts off of these levels with pretty good risk to reward. So that is the application for how I actually use volume profile. Now let's get into a couple common mistakes. So here's what to avoid when you're using volume profile. One, don't blindly trade every level. Volume profile is a context tool. It's not a signal. Like I said, it doesn't always work. There was one day in those examples where it didn't really react off a point of control. It just went straight through it. So wait for the reaction and add other context. Make sure you're using it in line with price structure and the trend and maybe other confluences, whether you use VWAP or EMAs or whatever. Make sure there's other confluences with it. And then watch out during low volume times like lunch hours or holidays, because those levels mean less when participation is thin. So they're really, really helpful during the market open when there's a lot of volatility. And then it's also very helpful at the end of the day, also known as power hour for some, after the session volume profile has been really developed and the levels are very clear, there's a lot of data and a lot of volume to trade off of. You can use it in the afternoon as well. So those low volume lunch hours, it's not a great time to use this setup. So volume profile, it can completely change the way you see the market, especially if you trade futures like I do with Nasdaq, with NQ. It helps you spot those key levels where big players are stepping in, and that gives you a massive edge to where you can be confident that your levels are really solid. So if you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you want me to do a full breakdown of my favorite volume profile setups. Or like I said, come join me and see how I put this into action with live trading right here on my channel. Happy trading, guys. Have a great one.